but I think now it's fine. It should be fine. Let's check it. Yeah,
There
you are.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Not a problem. Thank you.
I'm in Los Angeles at Sinai Temple, and honestly, I'm like just really honored that you're here, and I'll share how I know Isaac in a minute when we start. And it's just a conversation, so hop in. And just I want our community to know what you guys do behind the scenes to make this world a little better.
I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar.
Okay, so we'll be quiet and then we'll start.
Thank you, and nice to meet you too. It's nice to meet you.
Good morning, everyone. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple. I'm going to introduce our program this morning. We titled it Saving Lives, a Jewish Voice in the Afghan Refugee Crisis. And usually we plan ahead in programming at our synagogue, months, sometimes a year ahead. But this is not exactly a program that was planned, but a program that is needed based on what's happening in our world today. So I'm going to introduce our really honored guest, and we'll be in conversation. If you're watching on our Zoom webinar, feel free to put questions in the chat for our guests, and also on YouTube, our Sinai Temple YouTube as well. So to introduce our guests, I'm going to go back about probably 2 decades now. And as many of you know, I'm not just a rabbi, but also a rabbi's son from Syracuse, New York, and about 75 miles north of Syracuse was Fort Drum Army Base. Very cold, snowy. And every Passover, there were 1 or 2 Jewish soldiers that would make their trek down south to our Passover Seder at our synagogue. And I'll always remember my dad introducing those United States Army soldiers who, just to put it humbly, are and were and continue to be our heroes of this great country of America. One of those was Isaac Greenberg, now Major Isaac Greenberg of the Army Reserves. And over these past 2 decades, our paths have crossed in many different ways: East Coast, West Coast, Tucson, Arizona, Syracuse, New York, Los Angeles, California, Camp Ramah. But in this moment, they cross as the Jewish voice in our United States military, specifically during this Afghan crisis. And our second guest, Abdulhai Shirzad, called Shirzad, I've been told, is actually in Germany right now and was one of Major Greenberg's linguists. And we hear so many things about linguists these days in the news, and I'm just excited to hear what that means, and most importantly, by the end of this hour, what we as a Jewish community can do to help you, Shirzad, people like you in your situations, and how we can really build an alliance together. So with that, Major Greenberg, it's so good to see you in live from Orlando. And I want to go back 20 years because today's September 1st, and it's not only the first day without troops in Afghanistan, but we're almost 20 years to the day of 9/11. You entered the United States military West Point Academy 20 years ago, 2 months before 9/11 and 2 weeks into your classes. Take us to 9/11 at West Point and what that, the minute you found out and the minute that that also changed the trajectory of your career.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on here, Rabbi. It's great to see you.
Always good to see you.
Being always engaged with your family. Awesome to see Shirzad, one of my favorite people in this whole wide world. And I'm looking forward to the next time I see him face to face and giving him a hug. So 9/11, what a day. That Tuesday morning was a normal day, woke up early, went to formation, had breakfast, attended my first period of class. As I was walking, as I was double timing, as a freshman, you're not allowed to just mosey around. You have your handcuffs, and senior stops me and says, Cadet Greenberg, get to your room right now. turn on your TV, on your computer. As freshmen, you're not allowed to watch the television, and there's something going on that's critical for us as soldiers to watch. As I get to my room, my team leader, who's a sophomore, who's from New York, asked me to come to, or told me to go to his room. And this time was different. I was not standing at parade rest. He's like, I want you to relax. We're watching this. Things are going down in New York. Potentially we're off to war. As we were watching the television, Flight 11 took off. We know that it hit the tower around 8:24, and then we continue to watch the monitor, the screen. We watched the second targeting hit, and we knew that this was not an accident, that this is most likely an act of war, but we had to continue. I had to get to class. I went to my second class, and by the time it was lunchtime, a lot of whispers, a lot of unknowns, a lot of scared people. We all signed up prior to going to a war, knowing the fact that we know it's going to be a risk, but we haven't been at war since the 90s, since Desert Storm. And the rumor at the time was that here we have 4,000 future Army officers at the cadet mess hall at West Point, that we are the next target. The airplane that just left Boston used the Hudson River as a line, a route to get to New York City, where it hit the Twin Towers. So the rumor at the time is that what would be another great target than just focusing and attacking 4,000 future Army officers. It was an awful moment. No clue what was going on. That night, my parents called me, asked me, as a freshman, you still can opt out. You do not need to do this. And as an 18-year-old kid, there's a reason why I signed up to go to West Point. I want to do something greater than myself. Even though I have no clue what I was getting myself into. And as an American Jew, I feel as though that Jews don't represent the American people enough in serving the military, where it gives myself as an opportunity to be that Jewish voice, to continue as we fight and support our American mission. And I always think about the Holocaust, even though that happened 75 plus years ago, we always were taught about the Holocaust, about saving people, about saving Jews. And this was our time to step up, not just as an American, but as a Jewish American. My grandfather, my Zaidi, served in World War II. And it's a way for me to just live up to the standard of West Point of duty, honor, and country.
So Shirzad, 9/11 for you. Do you remember that day?
Yeah, I was actually pretty much a child, but I do remember I was sitting and my father had some guests, and we were watching actually the news. In that time, I'm originally from Panjshir. It's located in the north of Kabul, about 150 or something kilometers away. But because of the Taliban, they had to fight against Northern Lines, so we had to immigrate to Pakistan at that time, but a different way in order to save ourselves, because I was a child and my family, my mother and everybody. So very, very difficult situation. We immigrated, we hid ourselves from the Taliban for a different way. We get to the Pakistan in order to save ourselves. But my father was fighting against the Taliban at that time. And then he also later come in to Pakistan. So we watching the TV that suddenly this happened, and the 9/11. But we had no idea what happened, why it happened. But that time actually we were always focused on the situation in Afghanistan because the Taliban took over approximately the whole country, but they were the people of Panjshir resisting against them, and they were hardly fighting against them at that time. So then this was the story that actually began and persuade me in order to crush the Taliban, the terrorists, in order to take them out of Afghanistan. Not just me, everybody like me dreamed to live in a better country and to be proud of their country, to be proud of their culture, their flags, their nationality. So this just the beginning of what actually persuaded me and to immigrate, to come back to my country. I wasn't actually too long in Pakistan anyway, but then we came back to Afghanistan as soon as the United States attacked Afghanistan. Then I was very interested to work as an interpreter, and I was looking forward to somehow continue to in rehabilitation, in resettlement, and to restabilize my country. And this was the only way that actually at that time I got to work as a translator with the U.S. Army. I was too young at that time. They told me, no, we don't hire a kid. You're under 18. They just look at my my Tazkara. It's called Tazkara, but I went to put a different number in Tazkara and made myself 18.
So Isaac, I wanted
to work. Yeah.
Yeah. So leading up to that, though, Isaac, in 2001, it's 9/11. You deployed in 2006. What was the journey leading up to that deployment? And first of all, what did you expect when you landed on the ground in Afghanistan? When we spoke with you before Shabbat this week, you said it was like going 4,000 years back in time. Here you're in upstate New York, and now you're in Afghanistan. What's the comparison?
Right. So from September 11th, immediately we had no understanding of what we were getting ourselves into. The generals at the time is like, your mission right now is to get educated. You're here for the next 4 years, and we're going to prepare you to be the best officers to lead the women or the sons and daughters of the United States Army. I graduated in 2005, attended the intelligence school at Fort Huachuca. In June, I graduated. A couple weeks later, I was at Fort Drum. My first experience at Fort Drum was working with casualty assistance. 2 soldiers were killed in Afghanistan, and I was there to support the ceremony and the funerals. Little did I know was that was a unit that I was going to. And so I was on a bird and an aircraft the next week to go to Afghanistan, where I landed in Bagram, where you spend about a week. Then I was flown out to the headquarters of 3rd Brigade, 10th Mountain Division. And then a week later, which I told you, so like going to Bagram, it's flying into a time zone of like 4,000 years ago. Very basic homes made out of mud, all dirt roads, very isolated. Looks like a desert, very similar to like the Sonoran Desert in southern Arizona, which made me feel a little bit like home. And then I was flown out to Jalalabad Airfield to join an infantry unit, where we were the light infantry unit, 700 soldiers responsible for 4 provinces. At this time, it's 2006. The main focus was in Iraq. There were 20 brigades in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, and 700 soldiers are there to take the fight to the enemy and try to build the nation. To get an idea of like my unit, our guys were in firefights every day, 2 to 3, 5 times a day. My unit, we only had 3 women in our unit. They were medics and cooks. We were dispersed throughout the 4 provinces. People hear of the Korengal Valley, the Waygal Valley, the Pesh Road. That's where the most intense fighting was in 2006 to 2008. And my job as the assistant intelligence officer at that time was to provide resources and coordinate with headquarters to make sure the infantry guys have the capabilities to take the fight to the enemy.
So Shirzad spoke about the Taliban and his dad really trying to fight back. What was the response of families like Shirzad's when you were there, in terms of either being welcomed or not?
So majority of the time I was at a battalion headquarters. My parents would say, lucky enough for me, they always said, don't be a hero. We know your personality, but your job is to be the intel guy. But there are responsibilities I had to take where I was pushed forward with the infantry, where I got the experience with the men on the ground who weren't getting showers. They would have refits every 2 weeks. They would get a hot shower and a hot shower every 2 weeks. And so the reason why I flew out there, one of our soldiers was killed in a rollover accident where my job was to collect the personal effects of his belongings. And so this unit went back to Islamabad, did the refit. They got hot chow. I'm talking to the chaplain. One of their battle buddies just died. And funny enough was that unit that I was going to was the 2 soldiers that were killed when I first got to Fort Drum in June, when I was supporting that mission of helping those families. So I've always had a connection. Like there's a reason what I'm doing. That night, I was in my first rocket attack. No clue what to do. No one told me what I was supposed to do. We were being shot at from the Pakistan border. There were bunkers, but I had no clue where the bunkers were. So I'm just like in my wood tent, my wood hut, and just hunkering down till someone came in yelling at me saying, "Go to the bunker." That ended, and then I eventually met the unit that I was going to the ground with the infantry guys. I was going to be amongst the local nationals for a week. We have a little command outpost where it's 2 platoons, approximately 40 individuals. One's point security half the day. Yeah, there's out missions working with the people. So we do interact with the locals, and they address their concerns. A lot of it has
What
to
were
do with
some of those concerns?
safety for the most part. Whether it was from the Taliban or just us being there, was that we attracted chaos. If you're around, the Taliban's going to attack. And then the Taliban will go around to the different villages saying, if you interact with the Americans, we're going to kill you. We're going to rape your children, and you're going to lose all your livestock. And so as much good as we wanted to do, we're also causing turmoil in these regions because Americans want to be the best people possible. We have wives and children, and like we love humanity and life itself, but we're also really good at fighting, and we got to protect the man or woman to the left and right of us. And some of that most appreciative moments was just hanging out with the infantry guys, just laying on a cot in the middle of nowhere, and just like the mornings, just seeing like 50 children just coming up and just like, they're asking for money. They just want to be around American people, and just talking to them through hand signals or just gestures, and seeing just people just being people.
I love that. I think people being people is important in this conversation. It's not about politics. It's actually about humanity. Right. Actually, I want to share this picture, and then I want to go to the relationship between you and Sherzad. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger. All right. You said children coming up to you. What was it like interacting with young Afghan children like this? What did they expect, and what did you want to give them?
Right. So at this time, I would say that the biggest differences is like when I was in the military was when I was single, to being married, to having children. All my deployments, I was single. I thought I was fearless. Nothing could happen to me. But yeah, interacting with these kids is just happy. We're giving them opportunities, providing clothes, providing food, giving them some kind of sense of security. Just seeing a smile is definitely worth it. That day, we were doing a humanitarian effort for this region that was full of Taliban. It was a pretty intense mission where we brought in 2 companies, which is approximately 400 soldiers. We brought in the Afghan army, the Afghan police, and every time the intel reported that every time Americans went there, they were engaged. So it's a hostile environment where we wanted to ensure that we can bring security and bring some kind of hope to the people of Afghanistan and Lagman province.
I love the word engagement and hope. I think those are important words that the U.S. military was trying to do these last 2 decades. So let's go to this beginning of the relationship with Sherzad. Sherzad, what was the first time? So you tell them that you're 18, so you get a job, right, with the American forces.
Yeah.
You know what you were going to be doing? What was your job? And describe the first time you meet Isaac.
Actually, I started pretty much early working as an interpreter with the U.S. Army, but later on at 2008 or 2009, I don't remember really the accurate time. I think it was 2008.
So right? we were there in 2008 December, so it's all 2009.
2008. I met Isaac Greenberg and also there are many other partners that he had. They were a very good team and very Isaac personally had a good heart. So we actually went to when we had an mission. So he always tried to talk with the people, nicely try to gather information. So that was his job. But so the interaction and relationship. With me with my team was good, and also the team with the people with the environment was very friendly. Mm-hmm. But of course, there was actually the opposition group, the Taliban. They also had some opportunities, as we were hearing from the sources. They were also persuading the people and try to hang out leaflets like night letters to the people, but trying to create fears among the community, among the people, in order not to help the coalition forces in these areas. So, but the U.S. Army mostly trying to do a diplomatic way and to help out people, to give opportunities, some works, for example, and to build mosques, for example, and to rebuild some schools for the children. But the other side was always forcing, imposing its own ideologies on the people, and it was a much different situation. So a hand of evil and a hand of good. So it was like this. So
yeah, actually, Isaac, you told me last week that the Taliban had the gift of time, which we all are seeing obviously is the gift that they're using right now. But Isaac, described to us that how you were able to do your job with the help of Shirzad. What did that look like on a day-to-day basis? And then you said, just unbelievable that one day Shirzad will be speaking to a synagogue in LA right now, which is, I think, the most amazing miracle happening right now. So what did that look like on a day-to-day?
No, absolutely. So my second deployment was a lot different than my first. First was very kinetic, and it was with the infantry soldiers. Second time I was a captain. I just spent 12 months overseas, and so now I'm 2 ranks higher than what I was the previous 12 months. I had experience in our leadership. We're all coming from Iraq, so the younger officers had more of the experience to influence what was going on, and so what I knew is like we needed to find some type of humanity in this. That's how we're going to win the hearts and minds of the people. And so I immediately reached out to like my network. Over the first deployment, hundreds of people would get onto like an email distro, and I just give a current status. And this time it bled over to the next deployment. And I told people, I'm like, we need school supplies. We need to win the hearts and minds of the kids and the people, because these are who we need to influence. It's not the people who are fighting us. It's not the elders. They're not the ones. They're going to still attack us. We need to develop the schools, the hospitals, change the way of government. And even though we're not there for nation building, they say, we are there as nation builders. We're there to help. And so, yes, they had time. The presence of the enemy activity was always a constant, especially in 2006 and 2007. But in 2009, as the head of security, our threat was mostly a rocket attack. It was harassment. And the people of Afghanistan have nowhere to go. They've been fighting their whole entire lives. And history speaks for itself. You have Alexander the Great, the Soviet-Afghan War, and our 20-year war in Afghanistan. Now, while it is impossible to conquer the territory in Afghanistan, although it is possible to conquer the territory of Afghanistan temporarily, the defeat of the Afghan military was simple, or the Taliban, but it was actually holding down the region and just being there for longevity to fight the guerrillas and the tribes members was going to happen constantly, because as you kill individuals, you make more people upset. They want revenge. And it's just escalating. And so they just had the time. They knew that eventually the American forces would have to leave. And so it's just finding that balance of like, when is it right to do kinetic activity, and when it's right to go to humanitarian activity. Because at the end of the day, we will go back to the United States and the Taliban will still be there.
And so what was, Shirzad, what was the day-to-day role? And by the way, we have a comment on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, please put your comments and questions. This one's actually for Shirzad. We all know, Isaac, that you're a hero, but we can't stop thinking about the 13 American heroes lost just this past week, and hundreds of people like you, Shirzad, fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, cousins, and friends. Shirzad, you're a hero, and we're eager to learn about how you are making a difference when most of us simply can just post online and we don't know what to do. How are you making that difference, Shirzad and Isaac, together? Today, not 2009. What can we do?
Yeah, go ahead, Shirzad.
I didn't understand the last.
So actually first, because some people join late, maybe Shirzad, you can explain, you're not in Afghanistan, you're in Germany, and how you got to Germany, and then what you are doing or what we can do to make a difference today, and not talk about history, but talk about the present.
Yeah, this is, unfortunately, what happened is completely out of mind. So it's undoubtedly, and no one believe what happened overnight. So unfortunately, it's very, 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 very upsetting what happened. For 20 years, U.S. Army coalition forces with Afghan National Army combined joint task force in the ground, fighting against terrorists and Taliban's, getting rid of them, wiping them out, pushing them back into the other side of Pakistani borders, and then slightly then becoming to the Afghanistan. And this is the complicated political games, because Afghanistan is actually a point of confrontation, for the globalized and for the regional powers. So they want to everybody. When the United States and Afghanistan, it's possible that Iran and China and Russia, they also they are not going to sit down and just watch. They're, of course, they're doing what they can do to somehow to create these terrorists or to focus on terrorist activities. How can they increase to hurt and to the balance of the security in Afghanistan? But overnight, it was what happened. Actually, it's upsetting for everybody. Like me, there's a lot of interpreters. There's a lot of Afghans families that actually work with the U.S. Army. They betrayed. They feel betrayed. They're feeling themselves that they're being betrayed and left behind. And also, unfortunately, for the U.S. Army, and a lot of achievement in the last 20 years. It's just boom, gone in the hand of the enemy. And now, instead of making them weaker, and the enemy is the Taliban, this is not the enemy of Afghanistan. This is the Jewish or Muslim. This is a globalized enemy for the humanity, and everyone has to step up against them. But now they left Afghanistan alone, and they are now with the modernized weapons, military equipments from the gift. So basically, just like a gift, they just got it, and now they're fighting against minorities in Afghanistan, imposing and creating fears among the different tribes, and they're mostly coming from Pakistan. I showed the other days a video, sent them through Messenger to Isaac, and this is the place where they actually trying to recruit in the other side of Pakistan. And for the Pakistani, Iranian intelligence is also behind these Talibans, because they use them to get benefits out of Afghanistan. Afghanistan, of course, had a lot of minerals, resources such as like latium and uranium and gas and all kind of stuff, sapphires, bluestones, everything that cost us billions of dollars. Now, China is also interested on that and try to make a way into Afghanistan and make a way into Iran by the ground. And this is, as I said, a point of regional, a global confrontation Afghanistan is. But right now, what we can do to make it short, of course, maybe what we can do is very difficult. We can maybe help the international allies that are actually left behind in Afghanistan. We can maybe somehow trying to make contact with them and to make they can make themselves in the other side of the borders, such as like Tajikistan or Uzbekistan or other countries that are safer to be picked up, or somehow to prove their cases and to help them in many the countries that are safe. This can we do, but this is a big disaster what happened, and I feel very heartbroken. Not just me, it's everybody around the world, maybe. So
Isaac, I reached out to you last week based on a Facebook post that you wrote that basically talked about how you are saving lives and the letters. Can you explain what you did literally last week, and then if there is something that we as a community can do as well?
Okay. First of all, to the brave men and women who volunteered, and to their families, and to the family of the fallen, the sacrifices made were not in vain. What we are witnessing today is not a failure. This is not our burden to bear. You know, having the privilege to serve alongside so many amazing Americans and allies and Afghans and service members, quite frankly, it's a tremendously amazing thing to be a part of, that I'm proud to be a part of. And everyone should be. And I get to meet people that just are able to do like tremendous things that are just unheard of that we can do to help others. So 2 weeks ago today, I saw on Facebook that someone was looking for anyone that interacted on FobShank. FobShank is where I met Shirzad. Shirzad was one of the linguists there, and I responded saying that I was the head linguist manager for 40 interpreters. How may I be able to help you? And so Justin, he immediately called me. Him and I actually sat at a table in the mess hall for 2 years. Later in our civilian world, him and I worked at Deloitte together. And funny enough, he lives 65 miles away from me right now, working for another company. So he called me and he's like, I want to connect you with this individual from Congressional Bill Keating's office. They're trying to help linguists get out of Afghanistan, or any Afghans that with high visibility that are being targeted to come to the United States. So through that, I connected to other linguists that I worked with Shirzad, and said, all right, this is what I'm doing right now is to help other linguists.
And where were they, by the way? Where were those other linguists?
They're in Kabul. So some of them fled, and they're in Kabul. They're still in Kabul. Some of them fled from other cities like Jalalabad, which is a 4-hour drive, but they left their lifestyle for this potential of getting on an aircraft in Kabul to evacuate to the United States. And so as I started talking to other people, more individuals started reaching out to me, sending me linguist names and their family names. And so I started pushing this information to this congressional office. And then the Veteran Network is very awesome and unique in which a way where we read stories, or we've seen stories on the news where people immediately got on aircrafts, flew to Kabul to like fly out thousands of orphanage kids, women and children, linguists, or just try to help those individuals leave the country. But the way that I was able to help was that I was able to talk with this congressional office, and they were able to write congressional letters to the people that supported the American forces. And they would take those letters to the Abbey Gate at the Karzai airport. And because there's two barriers, there was the Taliban that were in front of the Americans. And if you're able to get past the Taliban and you're able to get that letter to the Americans, those Americans can call back to the United States to confirm that, yes, we are helping them to get onto a manifest to leave to safety. Unfortunately, the suicide bomb did happen that day on Thursday. That Thursday morning, I was on a phone call with my linguist, and I gave him the instructions to grab his family, grab that congressional letter, grab his 5 kids underneath the age of 5 to go to the Abbey Gate. was a 5-hour period where I did not know whether or not I sent this individual and his family to their death because of that suicide attack. Lucky enough, he did not get injured in the incident. But now we're trying to figure out ways for him to evacuate because there are no other.
Where are they now?
They are somewhere in Afghanistan, in Kabul.
So they did not get out.
They did not evacuate, just like thousands of others that supported us. So through the veteran networks, we're working with other non-government organizations that are willing to stay back to figure out ground evacuations or other air methods to get these individuals out. But instead of having the American government support through the DOS or DOD, we need to find tertiary options. And they're scared. They know that they're being targeted. Shirzad can address a lot of his friends are being targeted. Some of them have been killed. And they're just looking for Afghans that have American phone numbers in their phones or see who's associated with them, because the Taliban are now in charge of the country where Americans are no longer there to protect them.
So Shirzad, can you maybe share over this last week, have you been in touch either with family or friends? And if you're able to share anything like that for us to understand really what it's like on the ground.
Yeah, first and foremost, I was very worried about my family. My family is still stuck in Kabul in the house, and they're not coming out of the house. Very
Your
difficult
parents?
situation. My parents, yeah.
In Kabul, wow.
In Kabul, yeah, and everything is under control by the Taliban. And the first or second day was, the situation was very complicated. There was no checking or approving the Taliban, but now they're settled themselves very well, and they are targeting. They're looking for people who worked or had ties with the U.S. Army. Of course, now they have every types of equipment, such as like bats and hide system. Where we as interpreters and even the Afghan National Army, anybody who worked, they used to process through these systems, and eye scan, fingerprint, everything is just pops out as soon as they take pictures, and they know who is worked with whom. So this is very difficult situation. My family is there, but I was in contact with Greenberg. He did try somehow to help, but I was very frustrated, and I didn't know what to do. It's just like I was kind of disabled, and I'm still disabled. I cannot do anything. I'm not sure what happened, but at the moment, this is just very, very difficult situation. Very depressive. So, yeah.
And then Isaac, maybe you can share with us that organization that you're working with that is dealing with this.
Right. So there's this company, No One Left Behind. They are the ones who are working for the last few years trying to get Afghans who are getting their special immigration visas before this incident tickets to the United States, helping them get homes, establish a life. And then over the last few months, they've actually were able to fly or get aircrafts to Kabul to evacuate hundreds and thousands of Afghans out of the country. And now that the Americans are no longer there, we're trying to figure out other courses of action of interacting with other embassies such as Tajikistan or Pakistan to help these individuals who started the immigration process to get them tickets out to the United States.
And then maybe you can share also, because Shirzad, you've been in Germany since 2015, and that process of sort of delaying trying to get over here to the United States, how does that work? And I know we've been hearing a lot about this special visa situation. What does it actually look like?
So I'm not too familiar with it. Oh, go ahead, Shirzad.
Sorry. I actually tried also as a U.S. interpreter the first time to try to survive myself and make out myself to go to the United States. But I was deeply, deeply in danger. And the Taliban was really, really threatening me. And by text messaging, they're trying to make themselves.
While you're in Germany?
No, I was in Afghanistan that time.
Afghanistan,
and I changed the numbers. They said, oh, we are from the government. We are from this attorney general. We would like to meet you. You come to this area, you come to that area. But I knew that it was Taliban. And of course, the situation was very hostile, not just from the enemy side. Everything was complicated. I did not trust even the Afghanistan government, as there's a lot of government official used to work also secretly to help this Taliban's. They, of course, that's happened. And we had a mission with the US Army. We killed a few very high-ranking Talibans in that mission. And then the brother later on had interview about it. This was a very, very difficult situation. So they actually wanted to revenge. They want somehow to capture me, and because they were in both sides, in the government and the other side, they were very powerful. When we killed, when they not me, but I mean the team that I used to work with, when they killed this person, the whole government, even that time, even Karzai was the president of Afghanistan. He ordered a search who killed them. But my team, special force, they had beer. They shaved all the beers because somehow they wanted to put this away and to say we don't know, because they had a lot of pressure from the embassy side, from the Afghan presidential side. Somehow, and they were in the government, they were in the parliament, they were in everywhere. They were very, very powerful. So then I knew, okay, I was very deeply in danger. I spoke to my mom. I said, this process is taking so long, and this is like a joke. I cannot, my life is in danger. I have to first survive myself. Then my mother said, of course, do somehow, go away. And then I went to the border. I came to Ghazni. There was a dangerous situation. Then there was a fight. Then we returned back. Somehow we came to Iran, the border. I told a story to Greenberg, and I was almost getting catched by the Iranian, and they were also bad as the Taliban. And of course, when they find out that a person worked for the US Army, this is another case. So I made myself to the Germany, but I'm still working to go to United States somehow, because I have all my family, not my family, but relatives and friends there. And anytime I try to apply to go to United States, and I have all my documentations. I have people that prove that I work with the US Army. Last time I actually applied, the ISIV, there was some shortages, there was some missed documents. They asked for like HR letter. Then I had to contact, together with Greenberg, we contact the MAP for the HR letter. Then they told me, you take your picture with your Afghan national ID card, so we know that you are Shirzad. I did that, and everything I sent through the email them, and it's been like almost 2 weeks and nobody answered the email, and it's just like pending. And then I don't know.
And all of it's interesting because you said your journey to Germany basically, and what put you in danger was helping Isaac and us, which is amazing, which I don't think are the stories that we hear, right? We hear of our own people being put into danger, but not understanding that when they are on the ground, right, it's people like you, Shirzad, that allow them, as Isaac said earlier, to engage, to give hope, to give humanity to each other. That, right, who is Shirzad? Who is his family? And I just want to commend you for what you have done. I want to ask one last question, and if there's any other people out there in Zoom or Facebook or YouTube that has a question, please type it in and we'll gather it and be able to ask. We have about 10 more minutes left. Now that I don't want to say the war has ended, but the troops are no longer on the ground, right? Your family's in Kabul under the Taliban. Let's take a backwards look, as we started 20 years ago, and then take a look at today. Is it the same as 20 years ago? Is it a different situation of the Taliban coming in? We didn't have the social media world that we had today, where it was sort of behind closed walls. Maybe Shirzad, you speak first, and then we'll conclude with Isaac. What does that look like today in terms of the Taliban coming back? And yeah, go ahead.
Of course, everyone have its own perspective, views about Afghanistan, but I think I'm proud of what I did. I was meant to help my country and to rebuild my country. But whatever happened now is just we cannot do anything. So either ways, unfortunately. But Afghanistan is, so you, for example, you try to climb a mountain to reach to the top, but suddenly you get to the top, somebody just tried to push you back and you came back to the bottom. That's what happened with all the efforts and achievement that Afghanistan, including the US Army for the last 20 years. It just happened, unfortunately, like that. But one worst thing is now that the Taliban even got stronger because they have all types of equipments that left behind from the US Army and Afghan National Army.
So last question for you, Shirzad, and then I want to hear from Isaac. But the Jewish connection, right? Had you ever met somebody who was Jewish before Isaac? And I know Isaac said one time you were on patrol and you were speaking about religion. I want to be the fly on the wall in that conversation. Tell us about meeting Isaac, not just as an American, but actually as a Jew.
For me, I was not hear a lot of things about the Jewish people, but I knew that, for example, I was not very familiar with the Jewish people, maybe because I'm not reading too much, I'm not too much religious or something, but I did meet Greenberg, and I think then I started joking with him. I said, my Jewish brother, and every other Afghans, they were laughing because saying Jewish is like, oh, it's like, not always, but we're all human. We all work together. We have the same point of view, and the enemy was against all of the humanity. And these types of situation at the end, we have to be together as a human being. We do not have to cross and bring the religion in between us. That because sometimes the religion make every humanity apart and give a different imagination. But to be honest, I do believe that Greenberg and everybody, we are good human, but everyone around the world, but Jewish, Muslim, good Muslim, just like me, I'm also a Muslim, and I am friend with Greenberg. He's Jewish. We had the same perspective to help Afghanistan, and we were in Afghanistan in a very dangerous situation, and also we have bad people. And so unfortunately, this is I cannot say anything else, but we had a good friendship with my Jewish brother, Greenberg.
Beautiful. And then Isaac, first of all, many comments coming in saying, thank you for your service, both of you. Actually, question, do you think that America's financial support of Afghanistan will allow the United States to continue to help people get out? That'd be for Isaac.
So yeah, no, most definitely. We have faced a lot over the last 20 years. The American public cannot really understand what the American soldier has done or the Afghan who have supported this war. I'm happy that we are no longer in this war in Afghanistan because we should not lose any more American lives. And I recently read, to make sense of this will just drive anyone crazy. We have to accept that we have been there for the last 20 years, but it was due to those circumstances, we had no choice. We need to continue to support Afghanistan, support the people, help the women and children, and just help them develop a better nation. Just across the globe, we should always be doing that. As Americans, we are born into, a privileged life. Like, I'm not going to go specifically into like being privileged, but just the opportunities are unlimited being an American citizen. Now, if I was born in the life of Shirzad, it would be drastically challenging going back 4,000 years, as I said before. But as an American, we should take pride knowing we answer the call, that we need to take time to explain to other Americans, tell them the truth, the good, the bad, the miraculous times, the bad times, the casualties. We need to explain to new soldiers. It's been a while since American soldiers have been killed. And like they've read all these stories, they've seen stories, but it's just crazy to me that when I was last in Afghanistan, it was 12 years ago. So now the veterans are probably a unique source that we have in the United States, that we're problem solvers. We can take things to the next level, take on next missions, whether it's supporting Afghanistan, supporting our local government, supporting our government. Like, it's a time where veterans need to step up, and we showed it in these past 2 weeks, going back to the country, trying to bring back hundreds of thousands of refugees to give them a better opportunity in life. And, you know, if I can give like 2 cents, like, look out for your veterans, because those are the people who are willing to do the inevitable to make sure that we are safe. They're very selfless people, and we've been in austere environments that we can't explain. And when we do, it just seems surreal. That how did that even happen? How are we still alive? But we did it, and we still have purpose in this life. And we just want to make sure that as a community, we just get better. As a humanity, we all get better.
So, I mean, I think that's the message of what we're going to do next week on Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday, whether it's virtually or in person, for our Jewish people around the world. There's a custom at the end of our services on Shabbat that we read those who have lost their lives or those who have passed away. And actually, over these last at least 10 years that I've been here, 12 years in Los Angeles, 7 years at Sinai Temple, every Shabbat when there is an American soldier who loses their life, we actually read that from the Bima, whether they are Jewish or not. And when we speak about humanity, it's about what we can do as a people. One second. Right. Is there a special bracha to make on Rosh Hashanah to help people in Afghanistan and people like our speakers who have stepped up? That's a beautiful question. Is there a special blessing? There's not a special blessing, but I believe in our tradition, there are many blessings that bless our leaders, that bless our human beings, that bless the individuals that allow us to have that moment. And I think the favorite blessing of the Jewish people is a Shechianu, which says, and I'll translate it. Sure, I'm not sure with Isaac's day school education. By the way, everybody, Isaac is a graduate of the what's it called? The day school in Tucson.
Well, I went to the Tucson Hebrew Academy. I went to Kid Vermont. I was USY, your alumni of the year for being in charge of Jewish services in Afghanistan and providing that opportunity. And I did the Jewish choir at West Point as well. Just a Jewish. We have a beautiful synagogue that Rabbi Warta, who's one of my heroes, one of our mentors, that helped a lot of us as we were preparing to go to war. Those cadets between 2001 to, I think he was there until like maybe 2010. He even took time to go to Iraq.
Wow.
Yeah, and then came back and just like, we are the future. We are the Jewish future. We are just humanity's future to like take this to the next level.
Well, I would say the blessing is the Shechianu, which we say at every life cycle occasion, because it has really, we thank God, we thank each other for sustaining us, for allowing us to reach this moment, knowing that we have people like you, but it's not just people like you. You now need to inspire, you have inspired us. Shirzad, God willing, when you get to this country and these shores of America, we hope to welcome you to Sinai Temple, and maybe we'll do this in person, all of us within our own community. We want to just thank you, Major Isaac Greenberg, linguist Abdullah Shirzad.
Thank you.
Please know that we are with you, and not just in word, but if there is action that we can do as a community, please let us know. We want to be there for you, for your family, and for the people out in Afghanistan as well. We want to wish everybody a Shana Tova, a new year filled with peace, of shalom, and health, and fulfillment, and a purpose of humanity as well. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.